What's going on, guys? This is Aaron from Departures Capital. We're here with Doug Drysdale, CEO of Cybin. Nice to have you on, Doug. How are you doing today?
Hey, Aaron. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I'm excited to be talking about Cybin. Cybin is transforming the mental health treatment landscape. So how is it different from today's traditional treatments?
Yeah, it's really a paradigm shift in how we treat mental health disorders like depression and anxiety disorders and addictions. So when you think about current treatments today, like SSRIs, they can take weeks or months to work. And for many people, it's been shown that SSRIs are no better than placebo for mild to moderate depression, at least. And what we're seeing with psychedelics is the potential for patients to enter into remission, so to be free of their depressive symptoms for weeks or months at a time, 5 or 6 months at a time, potentially from just 1 or 2 doses. So that's a completely different mindset, complete paradigm shift from how we treat mental illness today. And we're doing that by developing at Cybin, we're developing derivatives and analogs of classical psychedelic drugs like psilocybin and DMT that we've known about for several decades. But we're working to keep that efficacy, that potential, but overcome some of the limitations that we know exist with these medications so they can become real therapeutics.
No, that's very interesting when it comes to Cybin. So, Cybin's leadership team has deep roots in psychedelics, pharmaceutical, and regulatory experience. Can you tell us more about the team and how they're helping the company achieve its mission?
Yeah, the R&D team has more than 400 years of combined R&D experience. So maybe that just means we're old, but the team has a lot of experience bringing drugs to market. They've worked collectively on more than 60 development programs with FDA, and some of the team were involved in developing esketamine, which went to J&J and became Spravato, so the first commercially available psychedelic. The team has taken our psilocybin analog CYB3 from discovery to the clinic in about 18 months. And that's really, really fast. Drug development is typically quite slow, it takes a long time. And that process normally takes 3 to 6 years. So 18 months is really record time. And we've been leveraging the team and our network of about 50 different partners around the globe to bring these treatments through preclinical studies, about 140 preclinical studies in the last year, and get them ready for human studies just in the next couple of months.
No, that's great. You guys have quite the team. Sounds like it. So Cybin recently partnered with Deepak Chopra, the Chopra Foundation. Can you tell us more about this partnership and how that aligns with your mission?
Yeah, so the Chopra Foundation is really dedicated to raise awareness about mental health issues and to help overcome some of the stigma that's associated with mental health. It's still very difficult for people to talk about their mental health conditions. It's hard for anyone in a public position to say they're depressed or have an addiction, for example. It's still hard to really talk about these things. So that's the work that they do. Similarly, because of the war on drugs for the last several decades, there's a lot of stigma and misinformation around psychedelics as well. There's still a lot of misunderstanding. People don't really understand these molecules because there's been such negative misinformation. So the partnership is perfect. We're able to leverage the Chopra Foundation's network of thought leaders, opinion leaders, policymakers, to try to overcome some of that stigma, both the mental health stigma and the stigma around psychedelics. It's one of those hurdles we've got to overcome as we bring these treatments closer through the clinic.
No, it definitely is. So, to date, the company has raised over 120 million and is well funded to move forward with your clinical trials. Can you tell us about the future of the company and its strategies to bring these treatments to as many people as possible?
Yeah, accessibility has really been at the core of everything we've been doing, which is why we're taking the time to modify these well-known molecules. So we've known about some of these molecules like psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, DMT for many decades, up to 80 years. But there's a reason that those treatments haven't become therapeutics. They all have limitations. So we've been working to modify those treatments for depression, addiction, and anxiety disorders. And we're creating a portfolio of potential products because there's no one size fits all, right, in mental health. I think we know that the lines between, say, depression and anxiety disorders are quite blurred, and there's a lot of variation between patients. So what we're trying to develop is a portfolio that allows the physicians to match the right patient to the right product. And we've got a lot of catalysts coming up in the next 12 months as we move into human studies. But the main goal has been to design treatments that are accessible and scalable, because at the end of the day, we want these treatments to be reimbursed by payers, whether it's governments or health plans, so that as many people can get access to them as need them.
Yeah, no, that really makes sense. So, tell me about Cybin's drug program now. What are the characteristics of each, and, what disorders will they help treat?
So 3 main programs, CYB3 for depression and alcohol use disorder, CYB4 for anxiety disorders, and then we also have CYB5, which has potential for neuroinflammation. So that could be conditions like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, or MS. CYB3 is a deuterated analog of psilocybin. So that's been designed to retain all of that efficacy of psilocybin, but overcome some of the limitations that come with classical psilocybin. Classical psilocybin takes a long time to kick in and get to reach full effect, maybe an hour and a half or so, which is a long time for a patient to be sitting around in a clinical setting waiting. Psilocybin classically is very long acting, maybe a 6 or 8 hour treatment day, which again is tough to scale. And it's also highly variable between patients. And the last thing you want with any treatment is a lack of predictability, and in particular in psychiatric patients. So CYB3 has been designed to overcome those limitations. And CYB3 will be entering human study in depression around the middle of this year. So we're getting very close to that. CYB4 we're developing for anxiety disorders. This is another deuterated molecule. It's a deuterated version of DMT, or dimethyltryptamine. And deuteration is just heavy hydrogen. And we've substituted some of the atoms on DMT on that molecule to smooth out the curve, the plasma curve of DMT. DMT typically only lasts 6 or 10 minutes or so. It's very short acting. It's quite an aggressive plasma spike that can cause anxiety and disorientation for patients. And it's also a very short time for treatment. So we've extended the half-life by about 3 times with our CYB4 program. That means that patients potentially can end up with maybe a 30-minute treatment session, maybe 10 minutes for recovery after that. So patients could be in and out of the clinical setting in about an hour, which is very convenient and could fit within a regular day. So we're looking forward to sharing some really meaningful preclinical data on CYB4 very shortly, comparing it to classical DMT and there's some of the advantages over that.
Great. So going back to CYB3, could you talk a little bit more about the exciting results from your preclinical studies and potential for patients?
Yeah, so CYB3 is in great shape. We have completed all of the IND enabling studies for CYB3. So that means it's ready now for us to file an IND with the FDA this quarter. And that means what we'll be looking for then is we'll be asking to start a human depression study around mid-year. What we've done with CYB3 is modified the molecule to overcome some of those limitations of classical psilocybin that I talked about. So we've seen in preclinical studies in multiple models, the CYB3 is twice as fast in terms of onset. So getting up to speed and getting the patient in that psychedelic state twice as quickly. It looks like maybe within 30 minutes in these preclinical models. We've seen that it's at least half as short in terms of duration. So instead of being that 6 hours or so for psilocybin, we think that CYB3 will be down out of the therapeutic window in 2.5 to 3 hours. So that means far less time in the clinic for patients and for physicians as well, of course, and for the whole infrastructure and healthcare system around it. So that means we can scale these. We also noticed that the data is much tighter with CYB3, far less variability between subjects, and that means more predictable responses, more predictable outcomes.
Yeah, no, that's...
And then, sorry, one more thing. Just the last thing with CYB3 is that it's quite potent. So it gets into the brain and to the site of action more efficiently. And that means potentially we'll be able to give less drug to get the same effect. And reducing the dose is always good. If you can do that with any treatment, it has benefit and may have the potential to reduce side effects, because about a third of patients that take psilocybin experience headaches and nausea. So maybe we can address some of those issues as well.
Well, that's pretty fascinating. So, we saw that Cybin and Kernel have initiated a feasibility study for flow technology. How will this technology set you apart, and what impact could it have on the regulatory path for bringing psychedelics to the market?
Yeah, this is really exciting, and it's something that nobody else in the space is doing. And so I'm really excited to see some of the results that are coming up soon. The Kernel team has done a phenomenal job with the flow technology. They've essentially miniaturized TD-FNIRS, and this is a long phrase, but TD-FNIRS stands for Time Domain Functional Near Infrared Spectroscopy. And they've taken a technology that exists and is proven, but they've both miniaturized it and made it more powerful. And that means that instead of having to put a patient, say, in an fMRI machine, we can now just use this helmet that looks a bit like a bicycle helmet. So quite small and lightweight. And we can monitor brain activity during a psychedelic experience. That means that it's so much more convenient, and we can get so much more accessibility to patients and accessibility to data. And the lack of access and expense of fMRIs has really limited that study, or that information. So collecting all that information, we hope to learn a few things. We hope to learn more specifically which areas of the brain are impacted or light up during the psychedelic experience. So maybe we can develop more targeted treatments. And then last of all, I think is very interesting, is the ability to look at the neuroplasticity that happens during a psychedelic experience. We know that new networks and connections are formed during these treatment sessions. So we can monitor patients before, during, and after one of these sessions and track the neuroplasticity. Perhaps we can see how long that neuroplasticity persists, and maybe we can even predict with new treatments just how long they may have a benefit for patients, whether it's weeks or days or months into the future. So I think this is just the beginning using this technology, but I think has a lot of potential in helping us design better psychedelic treatments in the future.
Yeah, it's amazing everything that we're learning so far. So what are some of the major catalysts coming down the line for Cybin that investors should be watching out for? And what are your thoughts on the future of investment in the psychedelic space?
Well, I think in terms of psychedelic space, I think the psychedelics are undoubtedly poised to radically change how we treat mental health. We're going to move away from this day-to-day chronic treatment of using drugs that are barely effective and take a long time to work, to psychedelics which have the potential to work very quickly within the first day and have benefits that may last for many months at a time from just a few doses. Now, we've got a lot of work to do to get there. And we think that optimizing the molecules, as we're doing, is the right way to go. So a lot of catalysts coming just in the next few months. This quarter, we plan to file with the FDA an IND to start a depression study around mid-year. So that'll be the first modified psilocybin in history to be in a patient study. So we're hoping to kick that off around the middle of 2022. Very soon, in the next few weeks, we'll have preclinical data on CYB4. This is our deuterated DMT, comparing to standard DMT, and looking forward to sharing just how we've improved the characteristics of CYB4 to be a much better potential treatment for anxiety disorders. We've got that kernel flow study beginning already, and I think as it's open label, we'll be able to share some data, some interesting news on that fairly soon as well. I think that'll get people very excited. And then we're beginning to have partnering conversations with pharma partners, big pharma, around CYB5, which is our neuroinflammation asset, looking for ways that we can more efficiently take that through the development process as well. So a lot happening in just the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting time for you guys. So finally, how can investors interested in Cybin and the implementation of psychedelic treatments for mental health find out more?
Lots of information, including the investor presentation at cybin.com, CYBIN.com. And of course, we're on the NEO exchange in Canada and the NYSE American under the symbol CYBN as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Doug, for all that info. Best of luck and look forward to having you back on.
That's great, Aaron. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
If you like these videos, kindly hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications. Drop us a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. And finally, always remember, Departures Capital is for information, education, and entertainment purposes only. Don't buy or sell a stock because you heard it on here. Buy or sell a stock because you've done your research, you've done your thorough due diligence, and you're making your own personal investment decisions for yourself. This video is not financial advice. Furthermore, this video may or may not have been sponsored by the companies that we've profiled within this video, and we may or may not own shares of any of the profiled companies in this video. If you want to know the full disclosure details, check the description down below along with thoroughly reading our disclaimer. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.